Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stars and Startups podcast with me, Varun Bumidi. This is a podcast where we get up close and personal with interesting founders and doers from the Indian startup ecosystem. On the podcast, we hear illuminating stories of entrepreneurship and the journey of building businesses. On the latest episode of the podcast, I chatted with Vinay Bagri, the co-founder and CEO of Neo, a fintech that was founded in 2016, offering a digital banking solution for salaried employees with the aim to digitize the entire payroll and benefits processes for contract workers, especially in manpower companies, the atypical blue collar worker who earns around 15,000 rupees per month. Today, Neo has over 5,000 clients and services about 2 million or 20 lakh customers via their salary account product. We discuss Vinay's fascination with salary accounts, the banking system, its evolution, and what is Neo about Neo. As always, do take a moment to subscribe to our channel and share the episode with others. Hey guys, today we have Vinay Bagri. He's the CEO of Neo. You can today call it a Neo Bank, but it's a financial tech company that he started in 2016. So let's welcome Vinay to the show, and we have a lot to hear from him. Hi Vinay, welcome.
Hi, Varun. Thanks for having me over.
No, fantastic to have you. I've followed Neo for a little bit of time now, and the first time I heard of Neo is because one of the Silicon Valley investors that I follow is Chamath of Social Capital. And when I read that Social Capital is invested in one company based out of India, and that was financial services, quickly looked up, who this company is and what they were up to. So I want to get to that in a little bit, but before that, you have been a banker for 15 years, or probably little. You probably think of it as a lot more because you're continuing to do financial technology, working with banks. Um, but I've also been in banks for a little bit of time. I worked with HDFC, and one of the things I noticed that people who stayed in a bank for that long retire in a bank. There's nowhere else they want to be, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who spent that much time inside of, Standard Chartered, which is a global bank, uh, Kotak. I think you moved to Kotak as part of ING. So you've pretty much seen the insides of the bank, and you spent so much time. Um, what got you to leave?
Yeah, so I think, I really never thought I would leave banking because, like you rightly said, it is exciting, it is rewarding. Um, and once you get in, very few people actually manage to get out, especially if, you are doing well and you're in a leadership role, etc. But in my case, as I said, I joined, Kotak as a part of ING. When the merger happened, I had the chance to interact with Mr. Uday Kotak multiple times, during the integration, and I kind of got inspired to try something on my own. At that point in time,
Mm.
we were looking at, ING was famous for something called as ING Direct, which was a branchless bank, and it happens to be like probably fourth or fifth largest bank in Australia. We are a single branch. And, I was working with a gentleman who was from Australia and who had come to India. So, combined with ING Direct success, what they were doing, and, listening to their Kotak in general, I thought, it may be good idea to take a shot.
What's interesting is ING was kind of ahead of its time also in terms of having branches banking, saying, hey, can we reduce costs across the board? I believe in 2007 also, I remember when I was at HDFC, we tried to replicate a similar, they created a product which was supposed to replicate that. Say,
Yeah,
it was called Suvidha account, I believe. I don't remember
yeah,
if
of
I'm
course, the
saying it
Suvidha
right.
salary account, everybody knows about
Okay, so my memory serves me right. Now, our logic was don't show up at the branch because if you do show up at the branch, we'll charge you for it,
you'll have to pay. Yeah, yeah, you'll have to pay if you walk into a branch. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Did those models ever succeed? Because I know Citibank also had a Suvidha equivalent.
Yeah, so you know, actually, when you said the ING was slightly ahead of time, you're absolutely right. See, the biggest bottleneck to being, you see, people walking into a branch was already solved automatically with mobile. And whatever little was left, Geo solved it, and everybody's got a mobile now, and nobody wants to see a banker if they can avoid it. That's the truth. so, so now the only reason why ING Direct could not get fully launched in India or could not be successful at that point in time, I'm talking 2013, 2014, because then we didn't have Aadhaar and this whole formula of biometric
Mm,
KYC, etc., which made KYC super smooth. Earlier, opening an account meant you need somebody would come to you with a
yes.
form which is like 20 pages, to sign multiple documents, give a cancel check, to go to operations team. So it used to be such a nightmare that to open an account used to be very, very costly affair and very personal affair. So typically, your nearest branch, somebody would walk in and do it for you, or it'll be a salary account where somebody comes to your company and opens those accounts.
That's right. Yeah.
But that dramatically changed with this whole Aadhaar thing coming to picture in 2015, 2016. And now with video KYC coming in, and it is just very early days for video KYC, it's going to evolve. But if you look at mutual fund today and you want to invest in mutual fund, I don't know when is the last time you would have interacted with your mutual fund RM or whatever, it is not needed. Because there's a KYC which is there with CERSAI, Central Repository,
Yep.
and that's about it. You don't need to do anything.
Yeah. CKYC is a life changer for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. CKYC and whatever is required is video KYC. So in person is completely gone. And with COVID, it's like no longer a good to have. It's like a must thing.
And a lot of companies have taken advantage of that, right? You look at Paytm, they boast of hundreds of thousands of users. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but Paytm Money launched their mutual fund app, and the number of people who could launch and get started, I think, was fueled by something like CKYC, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have seen phenomenal success in the mutual fund experience for a user. So if you look at a mutual fund experience, typically you would go through agents or banks where you pay 2%, 1%, 3%, depending on what's happening there. Now, with this whole advent of CKYC making it affordable, you look at a lot of players who have come in and very, very, powerful products for the customer with zero commission practically. So you've got, Paytm Money, you've got ET Money, you've got Grow, you got Kubera. There's so many platforms, and now of course us, where customer can come in and buy mutual funds at zero commission, and people are able to afford that because getting in a customer from a KYC perspective is super simple. You just come in, enter your PAN and done. So it's like life has really changed from a mutual fund perspective. And I think banking is also headed that way. It's only a matter of time.
I saw that you spent about a decade at Standard Chartered.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, Standard Chartered acquired Grindlays in India to basically move into, kind of acquire their assets and then kind of create, value for themselves in the country. When you joined in 2000 and, was it
3.
2003?
2003.
What was the setting like? Because I know that that generation of bankers, could call themselves bankers, right? Today, if you go to a
Yeah.
branch, there are no bankers. They're just people.
Yeah. When I joined, it was already changing, Varun. So actually, I was from an FMCG background. So I had done, I would say, my formative years were in FMCG, riding on a truck and selling Parle, which
Hmm.
is mineral water, the Bisleri mineral water.
Okay.
And Rajasthan, you can imagine. So, nobody knew what a water bottle, why would anybody pay 10 rupees for a water bottle? And we had to create that whole category. So my expertise was distribution, at creating, distribution network so that your product can fly. And banking, as I said, at that time was just transforming from being a banker's thing to more like a distribution game and becoming more like retail. And
Hmm.
as I mentioned, the first banking job was with Vedi in ICICI Bank. And there, they were actually hiring people left, right, and center from FMCG background.
Okay.
And they were, all of us were nothing like bankers because we came in from this whole mindset of distribution. And how do we create distribution? How do we reach out to more customers? At that time, digital was not so big. So the entire distribution was about feet on the street and getting that available. So my first stint with Stanchart and for the first 5 years, and actually probably throughout, was always a very manpower heavy stint. And it was always basically outside the branch. So when I was doing unsecured lending, I had a 3,000, 4,000 people team. Everybody was outside the branch. The job was to get,
Mm.
you know, business in. And then when I was doing CASA, of course, it was similar. That
Mm.
anybody wanting to open a deposit account anywhere in the country, somewhere you would be in touch with my customer, my team, and so on. Yeah, so it was very, very little traditional banking, as I would
Yeah.
say. What was there in Greenland, it was very much like an FMCG banking, is what I would call it, and which is a norm today, but it was just starting off in 2001, 2003.
That's a very interesting fact you mentioned, because I actually till today I didn't realize that was the case. Because now looking back, my boss and his boss and his boss, they were from RPG, Aircel,
Yeah.
right? Guys who had literally done, the routes on the street to go and sell. I guess in
Yeah,
that
the
time it
number of
was,
people I'm saying from HULs of the world and Maricos of the world and PNGs of the world would have joined banking in that 2000, 2005 or maybe 2010 phase is just crazy.
oh, it's now that you say it, it makes sense. Because then it was land grab, right? I think ultimately for a bank, and I believe you worked in the salary account segment as well.
Yes,
and
yes,
and at
yes.
that time, huge focus on salary accounts, because they knew that this is a market you could just get overnight, because the rules are different. You don't have to maintain a balance, but money is going to come in every month. So I thought it was
Yeah.
incredibly smart that they made it. And then the only job for you was to go and acquire, so it was literally land grab. um,
No, absolutely. In fact, my favorite segment, if you ask me, in the entire retail banking is salaried segment. It's so fascinating, because your salary is going to come in, so there is no problem of getting the money in because that is already done. And then a typical salaried customer is a very sticky customer. So and with every year, with India's GDP growing, the salary also grows. So that balance is only going one direction; it's only up. So it's a very very lucrative segment. Has been always very interesting segment.
in your time spent in banking, have you seen, um, there's never been a focus on digitizing properly, right? They, there have always been these tools. We use Pinnacle and a bunch of products that we use in the bank at that time. They were just extremely clunky, but you could say in 2005 you probably couldn't expect more. But a lot of that hasn't changed necessarily in the decade and a half, 2 decades. Um, or are you saying no, things are changing? What's ailing the bank?
No, see, nothing is ailing the bank. I would say, if you look at Kotak 811, for example, it's a fantastic platform. If you look at maybe ICICI Bank's mobile app, I think it's very good. Um, I, so the challenge, Varun, there is that you create something and your foundation is built on something. Now you certainly can't change the entire foundation without shaking the building. And for most banks, what has happened is you've got millions and millions of customers already on that foundation. So you have to make do with best what is available. You have to keep tweaking, improving it. So there is always an intention to digitize, an intention to give the best to the customer, but just the legacy is just impossible to shake off. And the bigger the bank, the bigger the legacy. And which is why you will see, as the banks get the younger bank have slightly advantage of as far as this technology and the flexibility is concerned, and the other banks have to do a catch up or to create a completely separate system where they get a
Hmm.
different set of users. It's not easy because every time you create a new system, the other systems will talk to it. So you
Right.
create a loan system, you create a credit card system, you create a savings account system. Now, for a customer, he doesn't care. He thinks that I've got these three products, one bank, and I should have a single view. When I get into my mobile app or get into my net banking, every should be available. But for bank, because they've created different systems and different platforms, just to integrate that and provide the data seamlessly to a customer is a massive exercise. So that's why all banks will be disadvantaged, I would say, compared to the new banks who will come in now. accordingly.
No, I mean that's the challenge, right? When you're creating tech for so many millions of users, you're constantly going to have that kind of problem, uh, especially in terms of experience that you want to offer someone.
Yeah, if you look at Jen, one common theme cutting, see, other than technology, is that if you look at the design, people hired by banks, typically that investment is low
Right.
on that whole UI UX design. Typically it is definitely not what let's say some of the modern companies would do. So a
They
Swiggy or a Zomato app will always look much better than a banking because
yeah they
they've
definitely
really
skimp
invested in.
they definitely skimp on design for sure.
Yeah,
Right. I think that's the last thing that they think about. They're saying, okay, how do I cram in as many things as possible? Just keep putting it
on the
under
home
the
screen.
accordion. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
You just nest the option inside, and hey, you're done with it, right? Unfortunately, that has resulted in such a clusterfuck of that. But today, from a regulation standpoint, there's no demand on technology, right? I mean, of course, they have some expectation on audit and other things that they want the banks to maintain and do. But is there any other requirements from a regulation standpoint?
So it is just they do these audits etc. regularly, periodically, to ensure that the systems have to be robust. What is central bank worried about? The customer should not get cheated, and customers should not get lose their money because of some structural flaw. So these are the only two things they're bothered about. Okay, as long as the bank is transparent in what they are communicating, the products are clean and easy for customer to understand, and as
Hmm.
long as banks have systems which will not get hacked into like what happened in Bangladesh, and money get robbed, they're fine with it.
Talking about getting robbed and hacked, uh, have people looked at Yes Bank fiasco and started to now have some mistrust towards their money being in a bank? I'm also talking about other like cooperative banks that are out there, which are just giving say banking a bad name in general.
See, cooperative was always it was never considered to be like I would say 100% safe bet, and
Hmm.
they have a history, and it's a completely different customer segment. Uh, but in the history of independent India, nobody has lost money in a government bank or a private bank, which is RBI approved bank. It's never happened. Um, and people always know whether whatever happens. Like in case of Times Bank, I think HDFC took
Right.
over. Things happen overnight, and eventually the depositors' money in India has never been lost. So although Yes Bank, thing was also resolved in record 11 days, I would say it's phenomenal. They got resolved, but that 11 days scared the shit out of people because you know then you started looking at what the regulation says. And the regulation says, and it's now amended, that if you have, let's say, whatever amount in the bank, as an individual, government is only liable to give you the only 5 lakh is insured. So if you have 1 crore, 95 lakh is gone. Thank you so much. 5 lakh will come if the bank goes down. So nobody actually even thought कि bank go down means ये कैसे हो सकता है. And
Right.
now suddenly everybody is imagining कि बस ये हो सकता है और अगर ये हो गया तो आपने जितना भी पैसा रखा है 5 लाख ही मिलेगा. So this fear is actually set in, and which
Hmm.
is what people are doing, and it is great for you know banks in general, that people are creating multiple accounts. That let's say if I had an erstwhile relation with HDFC and ICICI, and all my money was there, I'm sleeping easy.
Yeah.
Suddenly my thought has changed. But let me open at least 4 accounts. तो डूब जाएगा कुछ तो मेरे को दूसरा बैंक चल रहा है तीसरा चल रहा है. So that was never there, and surprisingly, it's coming now, and maybe people are now more worried because with COVID, what's going to happen is the moratorium
Hmm.
was 6 months.
Right.
So you really don't know how good or bad the situation of
The
banks are
loan
going to be
books
after
are.
6 months.
Hmm. I think that's the biggest
So
scare, right? I mean, you had the PNB
yeah,
scare, which is still going on,
yeah,
right? And it's gonna be a whole new world in a few months. Um,
yeah.
so from a how the world is evolving. Kind of neobanks have become the flavor of the season more recently,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, what is? I mean, I had Jitain on the show a few weeks back, and we didn't get into the whole neobanking piece because I know Jitain has yet to launch, and he also keeps his cards close to his heart. So,
Yeah.
what is the whole neobanking trend, and why now? Because I mean, I will give you my view on European neobanks, but I would love to hear from you first.
Yeah, so I would say, why now? I think it is more to do with what's coming in the newspapers as such, and also to do with the round sizes, funding sizes of the foreign neobanks. So you look at, for example, if you look at Brazil Neobank, I mean,
Hmm.
probably the world's most successful neobank. They've been around for ages, so it is not something new. And even if you look at Monzo or Revolut or
In
all these
26, yeah.
Chime and 26, everybody is 5 years. Like 2014, 2013 is when the trend took off in Europe.
Yes.
And in all these cases, actually, all the cases I'm talking about, they moved from this journey of like a partnering a bank, then their license getting a license getting formed in those particular geographies, and these guys taking on that license, and there was this. It's how they've evolved.
Hmm.
Now in India, while a lot of people were doing something which is similar to neobanking, like we were doing something similar to neobanking, but we never called ourselves neobank. And suddenly now everybody is calling us a neobank, and unfortunately, our name is also neo, so we can't even say no. Sorry, don't call us. so, so, now that what has happened is because the biggest fintech, if you look at the biggest, some of the biggest fintech trends globally in the last 2 3 years in fundraise have been categorized as neobanks.
Hmm.
So you got Revolut like a $10 billion, N26 a $5 billion, Manzo. So unicorns, the number of unicorns who are genuinely neobanks because they got banking licenses across the world
Yeah.
is just massive. And it's only a matter of time where, some form or shape that plays out in India. And naturally, everybody would want to be part of the journey and succeed it. Um, so the India, in terms of, if I were to call it again, just for simplicity, neo-banking stage, we are maybe where Europe was in 2012 or 2013, somewhere there,
Okay.
where typically you partner with a forward-looking bank, create a great consumer experience, and then from there you see how it evolves. It may happen that you may not need to take a license itself in the partner bank itself. The partnership goes for long run, and we can take a situation where the government comes up and comes with a whole full category of license, and then you can take it that way. But yeah, either way, the reason why it's become hot is,
Yeah.
I think, more to do with fundraising news abroad.
Hmm.
Let me
Hmm.
put it this way, more than anything else.
But unfortunately, a lot of investment decisions in India are more outward looking than inward looking. Uh,
No, there's
so,
opportunity. There's phenomenal opportunity for
hmm.
sure, Varun. But opportunity is always there, whether you call it neobank or not. The opportunity will remain there.
uh, so let me get this straight. So there is neobanks, which is basically a layer, and you're saying there's a partnering opportunity with banks, etc. What is then an open bank? Is that the same?
Yeah, see, again, open banking is all. This is all. How would I say? Some of the terms are like mishmashed. See, open banking, what it means is it's like almost like a regulation which came out of Europe, saying that as bank you are almost mandated to expose certain APIs out, and then startups can actually use these APIs to build some products on top of it. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what open banking is all about. So if you were to say in India, is open banking mandated? No. You can't force a bank to give you an API and give you data and give you all that information. It's not there. But is there an open banking, almost like a revolution going on in India? Yes, of course, because banks themselves are willing to partner and they're willing to provide certain APIs. There are hackathons going on around their APIs. And the APIs are developing by the day. So India will also reach, and with account aggregator coming in, a lot of the information banks will be obliged to provide if the customer wants. So with account aggregator, what's going to happen, Varun, is that all your financial information, whether your lending information, wealth information, savings account information, if banks are, financial institutions are mandated to put it together at one place, and
Right.
customer at one click, at one approval, will be able to pull it out. So that will be really, in a sense, from a data point of view, to open banking, but otherwise, it's like multiple layers.
So what we're saying is with open banking, potentially there would be less paperwork involved to move from one desk to the other. And two, you'll probably be able to use a lot more data because you'll be data rich because the information is coming via an API, etc., via bank. So you could do a lot more with that data inside of systems and provide a better experience, I would imagine.
Yeah. So if you look at paper is already out. So if you talk it, we were speaking about mutual fund now with video KYC in savings account. So paper days are gone anyway. So open banking, no open banking, nothing to do with papers. So the thing which is going to happen with open banking, the second one, yes, of course, data will become more easily accessible, hopefully, and the partnerships with banks will become easier. You may not need to go through so many formalities to partner somebody if it becomes like a culture.
So let's switch a little bit to you making it to Neo. After your time at Kotak, what was that insight that you got that you're like, this is something that I wanted to solve? I mean, I know that Neo has changed or evolved along with the times, but when you started out, to say, okay, I'm going to hang up my banker boots. What was that one thing you wanted to go solve for?
So, what we realized is, all banks, and they're behemoths in their own rights with every vertical. Practically, if you pick up any vertical in Kota, we pick up a credit card vertical or a loan vertical. Everything is almost like a unicorn in that sense. Right? Well, if we would say that vertical is outside, not part of Kota, it will be unicorn. I mean, that's the truth. So there are so many verticals which are there in each bank where the justice has not been done to the extent which it could be if you do it that business only. Like if you do only that business in your life depending on that, maybe you will do it much better than what a bank does because banks has got so many things to do, and the size of the business tells you the opportunity in that business. And so my insight basically from working with Stanchart and mainly with Kotak was that because Kotak was evolving over the last 8-10 years, and with every year they will add one vertical, which in startup sense, in 3 years, 4 years will go on to become a unicorn inside code, like of course. But you will never get to see it. But
Sure.
they will keep adding vertical and doing some great job with that vertical and creating unicorns inside the banks from that perspective. So I thought that can we pick one area where we can do like a really great job and maybe create value for the customers and for our stakeholders from that perspective. So, initially I zeroed in on the salaried segment. Anyway, it always is my, favorite segment for various reasons. Uh, from a more PNL and if you go deep from engagement perspective, it's one of the most, I would say, stable, predictable businesses in a bank and profitable businesses in a retail bank. So, so what I, figured out was that salaried customers, everybody wanted to give somebody have a customer whose salary is more than 25,000. Below 25,000, it just didn't make sense for a bank, and rightly so because the cost was stacked up so high for the bank that when you get somebody who is not going to keep average balance with you, who does not have the capacity to buy wealth products, and you cannot lend to them because you don't know he's going to return the money or no. So practically, there's no way to make money. And I thought that this segment was massive in India. Like the Bharat, when we speak about, is like 100 million, 200 million people, without anybody really focusing on them as a bank customer. It is more like Jandan account खोलने आ गया तो खोल दिया या कुछ ऐसा हो गया तो खोल दिया. Like it's more like an obligation, but not as a customer. And that's how so I started with salaried, and I've been still. I mean, always we segment may differ, but the idea is always to add value to a certain set of users who are meaningfully large in number. So if you look at 2-3 businesses, so in a sense, we are also almost like bank where the technology and the partnerships allow us to operate products, and each product solves for a unique problem. So we initially started with a prepaid card product for Bharat segment because we
Okay.
thought we could do that at a cost point which was very, very manageable for the laborer. So if you look at my cost, it is 200 rupees a year. That's it. So there is no minimum balance fees. There is no hidden charges. There's nothing. There's only one fees. That you give 200 rupees, you take this card, go and withdraw money, do fund transfer, and I'll give you a mobile app which is as good or better than best of the banks.
Hmm.
Uh, so, so that
You know
that's how
what's
we solve for that segment.
what's interesting is you built this whole product on top of a prepaid, uh,
Yeah,
kind of infra, right? And
yeah.
what's impressive, and it took me a little bit of time to actually process that I ran the Citrus wallet business between 15 and 16. And I saw different models, right? We built a lot of different use cases inside of the TPI, you know, frame. Um, and Zeta also was built around the same time as a
Yeah,
company.
yeah.
And they went after salary segment and only saying, okay, I will be a better Sodexo than what you have, and I can go to anybody, and there's no paperwork, and I can use digital and no vouchers and whatnot. And they created a large-ish business with that alone. There were a couple of other companies, Transserve, Paytm, of course. Paytm tried to do everything. Did anybody else take the route that you're taking, just going after a specific segment and saying, I will just solve for this segment because anyway the banks don't want to deal with them. Uh,
No, so as of today, we don't have a real competition in this. Some small time players sometimes come and go, but nobody has a product which is so evolved like us. So what we have done in the past 4 years, Varun, is let's look at an SME. Now, India is a country of really small SMEs. So you got SMEs with 50 employees, 100 employees, 200 employees. You provide multiple facilities, including labor to the larger companies. Now, these SMEs typically have their payroll on Excel sheet and all that stuff. And disbursing salary is a challenge. And then, there is
yeah.
multiple challenges they have.
Hmm.
So what we initially started was a free HRMS for them, which we
Okay.
now upgraded to a free payroll system. So you just load attendance of your employees, and I will give you a payslip. I will
Hmm.
calculate your PSI, PF, everything. And then on top of it, to your employees, I'm going to give a prepaid card, which is, we've designed it in a way it looks like almost, or rather, it functions like
Hmm.
almost as if it's like any other account. So you do a fund transfer into this with an IFSC code and account number, and then as a user, you see a mobile app which is vernacular in 10 languages and which is also speech enabled. So if you're a laborer who can't read or write, you tap a button, the app will talk to you. So it's the only app of it kind solving for that kind of customer segment. So nobody thinks of a customer segment who can't read. उसको
Right.
mobile app देके क्या करेंगे? I mean, especially if you're a bank. So we solve that problem. And from a user perspective, it is great. His salary comes, he can withdraw from ATM, he can do fund transfer. Uh, you know, he can see his balance on the mobile app, and the experience is better than any other app he has seen in his life. So yeah, nobody else has. I would say thought through and done so much. A lot of people have tried to copy, still try to copy, but it's not so easy.
Speaking about that, I I looked at some of the numbers that you were shared in 2018, where you had about 500 corporates or 500 SMEs that you had, working with you, to numbers that are more recent, which said 5,000. That's a 10x growth in about 2 years. How did how did this work? Did you just put people at the problem, like increase, feet on the street and go and like knock on every door? What is the secret
No,
sauce?
so definitely, it is a people-driven business, but majority of our business is referral actually in this segment. It is just an SME, he refers 10 other SMEs, he refers to another 10 SMEs. It just goes from there. So, in fact, almost all our businesses, we like to build on referral. And which is why, if you look at most of our, I think, interview discussions, we focus a big time on NPS. Well, that's why if you ask me my single biggest learning in the banking segment, that if as a business owner your NPS is good, you will eventually make money. You will reduce your CAC dramatically, and you will have enough opportunities to make money. But NPS is the key.
I want to dig a little deeper, right? If you're talking about referral, and I think a lot of startups and businesses who are watching this would be like, wow, how do I create a kick-ass referral system that's, giving a one client is giving me 10 referrals, which is a massive number if it converts. Um, how did you go about creating something like that?
Okay, so there are three. I will come to the other segments. So if you were to stick to Bharat right now, then SME. See, SME, it is like a very natural thing without any formal thing. So there is no formal system. Like if an SME rewards and gets me another SME, he doesn't get anything. He just gets the satisfaction कि अच्छा product है मैंने दूसरे को बता दिया. That's about it. So there is no, I would say, in our Bharat segment, there is no reward system I have for referrals. But still, I would say that of the now we are around 6,000 companies. So of the around 6,000 companies which are there, 4,500 would be from reference from somebody else. Knocking door would have got us only the first 500 maybe at best, and every month maybe 10% of the business will be knocking doors, not more than that.
So again, I'd love to understand the process for referral. Is it just the salesperson asking an existing client saying, "Could you please give me 10 contact numbers," or is it
That
is
was
it
what was
that?
initial.
Hmm,
That was initially what was there, Varun. So right now it is, we made it simpler for the SMEs. So every time they interact with our product, uh, something like we know that when things have happened seamlessly for him. And at that point in time, if Barbin, do you like it? He says yes. Want to refer somebody? Just give us some name or something, and he presses that button. If it's an email ID, the email ID comes to one email comes to us. The one email gets shot to that person that so and so has recommended you, and somebody from Neo will be reaching out to you. So it's a very basic, very simple version.
so it is definitely work now. If you're saying that
Yeah, it
you
is working, no doubt.
okay,
It's working.
I'm gonna try and get more information from you on this, but I think it's a gold mine that I think should be shared. Um,
Yeah.
in across these 5,000 businesses, how many salaried employees come under this, and what is the profile of these customers?
So in terms of these guys employ maybe around couple of million customers. At any point in time, the customers who are active with us, where salaries are getting disbursed, are anywhere between half a million to quarter of 3/4 of a million. Of course, COVID has completely changed it, and numbers were completely went for a toss because the segment, most of these guys are contract employees. They're hardcore blue collar service manufacturing. The common theme across this segment will be the salaries will be below 15,000. That will be the, if you were to say one string that ties all the half a million users, I think it will be salary levels, maybe below 20,000, 15, 20,000. That's the number. So
So
COVID,
at this,
my views hit them the hardest.
so have you seen this whole segment getting obliterated? Because I don't think, because they get paid on a daily
Yeah,
basis,
yeah.
right? Kind of.
We were basically not we. I would rather say them. They were completely washed out in April, May, June. We could see the number of customers getting paid salary reduced, the value of salary reduced. It was, I think, fairly bad time. But I was surprised by the bounce back.
Hmm.
So July, we will probably have our highest ever number in terms of new customer additions. So India is a resilient country. They've seen a lot of adversity. So this too shall pass, and we actually
No,
very
that's
very
great. That's great
surprised.
news.
at the pace at which it has come back.
I mean, that basically means consumption also should come back, right? So hopefully that is going to be the case.
Yeah. It's a cycle, and the earliest indicator is actually Bharat segment. If you see the manufacturing segment, services segment start picking up, because agriculture is anyway not impacted by COVID. वो तो अच्छा ही चल रहा है. Rural तो in fact better than before. So the main segment is this. So actually, I'm very hopeful of what I'm seeing in late June and early July. I'm very hopeful that India is going to bounce back and prove a lot of I would say pundits wrong in terms of how strongly our GDP will come back.
You have a ringside view to this, so that's good to hear. From a business standpoint, when you created the product, and this is a tech-led product, and you're co-creating with a bank, what kind of partnerships do you build with banks? And banks are not the easiest people to work with, and you have a partner in IDFC. So, what's the relationship like? How do you kind of make it work?
So, the big advantage we've had, Varun, over, I would say, in a lot of other maybe fintechs, is that, I've been a banker in my entire business team. Nobody has a banking experience less than 10 years. Everybody at the minimum has drawn salary from bank for 10 years. We always think like bankers, and we would say that if I were in a shoe if I were, on the other side of the table, what would I worry about? See, the biggest thing I would worry about is मेरी job नहीं जानी चाहिए. That's the biggest thing. So, in banking partnership, you have to give them the confidence that boss, we are not fly by night operators. You are KYC for you. We are more worried than you about KYC. We are more worried than you about compliances. We are more worried than you about systems, processes which impact money. Because bank is all about money. Like I have got hundreds of crores of money which flows in and flows out. If the system is not good enough, and even if I lose like a lakh rupee, somebody somewhere is going to lose his job. So our relationship with bank is always a three-layer thing. The first layer is trust and a mutual understanding that we worry about compliances as much as you do. That's something we will not compromise on. Business happens, doesn't, like for example, today I've got maybe 1.5-2 million users who've signed up over the period of time. Not a single user I've signed up without full KYC. There is not one guy. Every single guy, when biometric was there, was doing biometric. In a brief period, biometric was shut because of Supreme Court order. Every single guy had a digital KYC fully done. So I just don't believe in this, mini KYCs, and we will do it 12 months later, and so always very high risk thing. So a banking partnership is based on this. So first thing you solve for is that compliance taken care of. You over comply, and then you look at area which is meaningful for them, and how the partnership can become symbiotic and long term. Well, if there is any partnership which is tilted towards one side, either us or bank, it is bound to end badly. So, which is why if you look at us, we partnered with Yes Bank in 2016, in DCB in 2017, and now it's 4 years and 3 years respectively. All that Yes Bank went through certain trouble for those 10-11 days. Our partnership is rock solid. Even today, it's absolutely rock solid. Anything but growing. Same with DCB. Nice. Hopefully, so starting off with that.
But so you have multiple bank partnerships with this. How do you play favorites here, or do you give the option to the SME to choose what bank?
Businesses are different. Businesses are different. So, for example, a Yes Bank partnership is largely driven towards the Bharat segment we spoke about. Whereas a DCB partnership is actually more for people like you and me who travel abroad. So it is India's best travel card by any stretch of imagination. And there our NPS rating is, up to travel khatam hi ho gaya thanks to COVID. But before that our NPS rating was hovering around 78, 80, which is, you take any bank in the world, you take Wells Fargo, Citi, anywhere, the best of the best will struggle to get that kind of NPS rating. So we had 100,000 users. Our app score rating at that point in time was 4.8, 4.9. So it was not probably the best travel card in India by any stretch of the imagination. So that we had a partnership with DCB. And with IDFC, like I said, it's a savings account. So we call it, the James Bond of banking, almost like that. So zero, it is 007 account. From a value proposition, it is easier to convey. So it gives you the benefit of that global card or travel card in terms of zero forex markup. It gives you zero commission mutual fund, and thanks to IDFC, it gives you 7% interest. So there is no better product in the market today.
Oh, wow. So there are different products. So for each product, pick a bank that probably works best for the segment, and then go ahead and
Yes.
work with them to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
When you approach these banks, and there's obviously, if you're giving 7% up, for a savings account, then there's not much money you're leaving on the table, especially because there's been decent cost pressure on banks as well now. We're doing 0% mutual funds, you're doing 7% savings accounts. How does a company like Neo then make money? I'm guessing technology service fee from the bank itself, which is still a small number. So you have to do a lot of volume. Am I right? Am I on the money?
Yeah, of course, you're right. So, TSP, of course, is one way, but the way we look at it is that majority of margins in certain products are are built because there are inefficiencies in the system. So let us take travel for example. I take zero forex market. That doesn't mean my margin is zero, because whenever you go and spend abroad, just like any other international card, the merchant will have to pay me 3%. Like India, MDR is gone. But if you travel to US, MDR is 2.75%. And that MDR is largely mine.
Wait, sorry, 1 second. I need to digest this. So you're saying that if I use my bank credit card or debit card today, I pay 3% markup plus he's getting 3% from the merchant over there.
Merchant. Yes, yes.
That's
So banks
incredible.
are typically making 5. Yeah, it's a very profitable business. That's what I'm saying. So banks make like 5-6% clean. And they've got their costs. They've got their branches in Nariman Point and all those places. So they have to take care of that. I don't have all of that. I'm completely digital. So for me, even 2.5-3% is good. I don't mind that. So yeah. So similarly, for all businesses, we have a model which is built on cost efficiency as the bedrock, and then using that to provide consumer a better value. So you look at a Bharat business. Now I am giving payroll practically free. Like a salary slip generation is practically free for the SMEs. But because it is all in-house technology, it doesn't cost me much. So I am making money in terms of fund transfers and in terms of other costs which the customer is willing to pay. So similar travel is extremely easy with third parties paying. So there's no challenge at all. And then hopefully, number of people who buy other things because they trust you, and which are revenue generating, like travel insurance, was a fairly good product for us. So those kind of things then come into play.
Banks have always relied on having a portfolio approach, right? That means you have the bank account, and now I will sell you a demat account, I'll sell you a trading account, I'll give you a credit card, I will give you mutual fund account, come open a fixed deposit. For some reason, they thought a bank locker was a big deal. And for some people it was.
Yeah, it remains. Yeah, it remains.
Right. So the portfolio, they keep adding, they're giving you different things that you could use, choose, and utilize. Um, are you also approaching the same way in terms of
Yeah.
how do you make somebody sticky?
Yeah, of course. So cross sell remains a major game plan for anybody and everybody. Although it didn't end too well, but Wells Fargo at one point in time, for every user had at least 6 different products. But they took it too far, and mis-selling eventually caught on. Generally that's the formula. Because in bank, the way to make money is if the customer takes any kind of loan anytime from you, he will end up being a profitable customer. That's a simple bottom line. So you hope that the customer stays on long enough to take any asset product from you or travels abroad. If he does any one of these two activities, you are sorted.
I mean, I'm curious now. You look at any bank, any app, forget bank or not, lending has become a feature.
Yeah,
Where it comes part and parcel with the app. Even if I'm uh, ordering food on Swiggy, they're ready to give me credit for that food purchase, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where do you see this going?
See, these are all Varun following international models. In world over, there have been success and failure, um, and will continue that. Basic credit is always runs in cycles. So in 2008, we saw the cycle. And I was part of the cycle because I was lending at that point.
Right.
And after that, I promised myself that I'm not going to lend. Jokes apart. So you have to take these cycles in the stride, learn from them, and move on. Because eventually, like I said, money is not in India. The money is not in payments. It is in assets for anybody and everybody. So, like
Interesting.
if you can lend and lend successfully, and still it is very underpenetrated society in terms of lending, formal lending. So you have a massive informal lending available, but formal lending is still, if you look at maybe the records of people who've got credit cards in a population of like 1.25 billion, I don't think you will get unique users more than 40 million. So it's a long journey to cover, I would say.
When we've chatted a lot about banking, neobanks, a lot of fun things, but you built this company as a tech company, right? Like a technology
Yeah,
company, and
absolutely.
there's obviously a lot of sales that happens, but that's only to acquire the corporate
Yeah,
itself or
yeah.
the
We are
SME.
a product and a tech company. That's what we are. Yes.
So a product tech company is a lean. In my mind, at least, a product and tech company is a lean company. There's
Yeah,
not too much operations involved. I mean, if you're a bank, yes, you have a lot of compliance, a lot of other things you need to worry about. With the
yeah.
kind of fundraise that you have and the bank balance you should have at this moment, where has been, and if somebody hasn't seen what that number is, it's around 49 million, 43 million.
Yeah, 49 million.
So with 49 million, I would imagine a lot of that is still in the bank. Paying.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
uh, where's the investments? What do you invest in? What's the biggest expense for you?
So biggest of expense, of course, is tech and product. So in terms of salaries, in terms of infrastructure which you built in. So that is the single biggest. If I were to point out, that's the single biggest expense. Other than that is you have to create a certain distribution, marketing, etc. So all those clubbed together maybe will be one. But if you were to ask for a single biggest item, it would be our investment into product tech integrations. From there. Because see, mostly the product which we build, we don't build a product where we burn money on a unit level. So for every time I get a customer, uh, I don't work on a model where I burn money and then later on I'll figure out something. So we don't operate that way as of
That's a good thing about having bankers to run the business, right?
now. Yeah.
Was what was the pitch then when you have a lot of international venture investors as part of the cap table, and did they at that time see what's happening around the world, and hence they wanted to be part of the Indian story? Was that the pitch to bring a social capital and all the other folks on the cap table?
Yeah, yeah. Of course, see, if you look at Bharat segment, like I said, we are fairly unique in the way where we are. We may not solve all the problems, but we are definitely the only ones. If somebody wants to um, like create a great fintech product for a salaried user whose salary is below 15-20,000, there is no comparison to where we are and what we are capable of doing. So we have not done even 10% what we're capable, but so that's very attractive story.
Hmm.
Second, what the global card, which is a travel card, um, kind of, we had just launched it in I think late 2018. Not even did a public launch. It actually came out from. It almost became viral in IIMs. It started in IIM Lucknow, and then it just became viral. So anybody who was traveling from IIMs for their international projects, we almost continue to have like a 80-90% market share. Uh, so there the product just took off. And then the way we manage that product and the way we handle that product, at that time, nobody used to call it neobanking or whatever. We even today we're really hesitant to call it, but it was to an external investor looking at us. They would come back and say, "Yeah, this is neobanking. This is like Revolut, or this is like
Yeah.
that." Yeah, awesome. But yeah, let's be clear that the customer belongs to the bank. I'm just creating a beautiful interface for the bank, and then in the process, both bank and I benefit from it. That's what the model is all about. And then they realize that as a company we have this DNA of finding customer value, and then without spending too much marketing dollars, then ramping up the customers very fast. So for example, I don't know if you would have ever seen marketing for my global card. I'll be surprised if you would have seen any marketing. We no Facebook investment, no Google investment, nothing, and we had 100,000 users, and 100,000 users who practically love us. And if you read our social media tweets, just focus on global card. You'll be delighted by the kind of love that is showered on us, for the simple reason that the product was simple, that you load money in Indian currency, travel anywhere in the world, you will get charged 0 forex markup. The mobile app had one killer feature, two killer feature I would say. One is you can lock and unlock anytime, so your money is safe. You keep it unlocked all the time, and that was our advice. You unlock it when you want to spend it. So security was paramount. And the thing which really did it for us was a 24/7 WhatsApp support. Because when you're traveling abroad, very few people will have the guts to take a phone and call to a call center where you're on IVR for 5 minutes. So this is WhatsApp. You don't even need to have a SIM card. Just tap a button and say you are in problem, and 24/7 will solve it. And we lived up to it. Even I have taken calls of sometime there was a problem. A lady was stuck in Germany. We arranged some friends to go and give her some money in Germany. So we've really gone the extra mile as far as the customer service is concerned, especially when people are abroad, because then it is not a everyday situation. So that when the investors spoke to our users of either the Bharat product or the international travel, they knew that we are onto something big. And at that point in time, when we raised the large round, Series B, we'd not even thought of launching a savings account, like co-branded savings account. But then what we realized is that when people travel and they come back to India, there's loads of money there which is not earning them any money, and they want a product which is more evolved. And that's when we we got in touch with IDFC, and they were very kind enough to kind of understand our vision and work with us, and 007 is a result of that. And it is also in a beta stage right now, so there's some challenges which keep coming. But our razor sharp focus is on only two things: can we add value to a user, and can we give him an experience which is out of the world? So it may take us some time to solve it, but the company DNA is that, and that's what investors love about us.
Do you actually, while you were saying this, does it mean that for the savings account, you're also moving outside the Bharat segment and now also exploring the general public?
Yeah. So
Is that
yeah. So savings account is actually not for the Bharat segment, because they can't afford it. It will require certain things, and we can't afford it. They come on board and they start swiping to ATMs. I can't afford it. So Bharat segment is completely on prepaid, and my personal thought is the way the cost structures are, it should be on prepaid, and it will become a win-win situation for customer, bank, and the fintech as long as it is on prepaid. Once it moves on to saving, it's a lot issue. So now the savings account segment for us is similar to a global segment. It's like you and me. Anybody who wants to travel abroad, anybody who wants to make an investment, anybody who wants to move from a bank which pays them 3.5% to a 7%, that kind of customers. It is all, I would say, affluent, mass affluent segment is where we are on the 007 product.
Do you see this 007 product moving more premium? Because when I think about
Absolutely. So
Uber Premium.
it is a yeah, it is going to be like a typical account. We'll have platinum product. We'll have a maybe a signature product and then maybe an infinite product.
Yeah, I like that because I think there is a huge gap in that segment. I mean, I think a lot of banks very freely use preferred, premium, premier, right? Ultimately, the real value you get from any of those is so broken. Uh, because I mean, I don't want a 7 paise discount on my forex transaction when I use it, right? That's not what my preferred banking should be, right? Preferred banking for me is, if I want something done, somebody will ensure that it gets done and I get the answers I want, right? It's as simple as that.
No, absolutely. So, COVID has done one thing to this, I would say, the upper middle class segment. See, everybody was expecting the RM to physically do the stuff for you. And thankfully, COVID has, you don't need to want to meet your RM anymore. You want a facility where I may send a message, works get done. So, with WhatsApp, we're trying to provide that. आप WhatsApp कर दो और भूल जाओ. We'll take care of it. So, I think, it has become, I would say it's a great time to do completely mobile solutions. Like we are partnering, and I'm sure a lot of other people will partner with some other banks and come with innovative solutions. I think the market is humongous for that. Again, at least
Yeah.
there will be at least 20 to 30 million people who will be shifting or having one more account for just for the ease of transaction. So they may keep their original whatever primary account somewhere, but they will have one account where they would want to keep money and do transactions seamlessly. Um, a simple thing like logging into a banking app. I'm sure you would be having some banking apps. Mostly, it's not easy.
I still don't understand why it is so hard. And why do I have to change the password 10 times a year? Right? It's mind blowing because now you have, interesting you brought it up.
Biometric, you've got binding on your mobile app. You got OTP for practically everything. So
It's mind blowing.
Actually shocking.
So my bank app takes my password and an OTP and something else, and I'm like, why are you doing 3-factor? This is just like mind blowing.
And that may be just to see your balances, because if you want to do fund transfer, the whole thing will happen again. So
my thesis or my thought is that the reason UPI apps today are taking off big time is the fact that net banking has just made it hard for you to move your own money, right? You don't want to log into your app to move money. Why do you want to do that?
It's a nightmare. You would much rather use one of these UPI apps. And UPI is brilliant. The way it's, it is, I think, India's biggest innovation in a really long time. Yes.
No, Vinay, this has been awesome. Thanks for sharing all the amazing, kind of things that you guys are up to. Wish you continued success. If you are currently hiring, please tell our audience. They'd love. I'm sure they'd love to.
Yeah, of course. So we are hiring big time in product, tech, design, marketing. So most welcome.
Okay, I will leave the careers page, etc. down here. Again, thanks, Vinay. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much, Varun. Thank you so much for your time.